All those returning, welcome back. Hope everybody had a fabulous Thanksgiving and were full with gratitude. I mean, once you discover the glimpses, you know what happens? We get this. So today we talk about Atma Vidya, which is the self, knowledge of the self, which when it comes to knowing self, we know all about our individuality, we know all about our ideas, our beliefs, our whatever we have and stuff. In fact, that word have, whatever we have, we know all about, right? But the one who owns it all, when it comes to questioning ourselves about who we are, if you take all what we have away, in other words, guys, and left with nothing, do you know who you are then? That's the big question, right? And so this is what Atma Vidya is all about. So when everything's gone and taken away, who am I then? That's the big question. And that's what the teaching of the Upanishads have been spreading and sharing for generations. I mean, it's non-stop sharing, non-stop teaching. And the teachings echo down this chain of teachers. The truth, basically a stream of knowledge comes down. And what is it doing? It's just showing you, all the little glimpses. We're talking about Thanksgiving just now. And so all the little glimpses of happiness, of bliss, of peace, of wholeness, when you're really feeling great, all those little glimpses, and if you're doing yoga or meditating or something like that, you're glimpsing all the same happiness. The ocean of happiness doesn't change. All right, we're always dipping into this same ocean of bliss. So now what's the deal? Shouldn't we get to know the source of bliss, source of peace, source of happiness, source of joy? Because then recognizing the source is the ultimate joy. Recognizing the source of happiness is happiness, because now nobody can take it away. Okay? And so when we get into these teachings, what we discover is those little glimpses that we've had, whether it's in, it can be anything, guys. It can be eating ice cream. It can be having sex, like anything is a glimpse of completeness, a glimpse of bliss. What happens when you get introduced to the self, you find a glimpse that we were having is nothing but an ocean of peace, ocean of happiness, ocean of truth, ocean of joy. And that's what it's all about. And what happens? Do you have to go and look for the ocean? Do you have to go and find it anywhere? No. What happens is you bring that ocean. That's what's so incredible. I was sharing yesterday about being human is the biggest accomplishment you can ever get. Never mind in this world, never mind in this little creation that we're in called Earth. In the universe, there's nothing greater than being human, because as a human being, you can discover, you can get introduced and be able to recognize the source of peace, right? And what you find when you get into it, when you start, okay, so we all start looking and questioning and wondering, what is it? What is all these teachings all about? What are all the books talking about? The texts, the sacred texts of yoga or Vedanta or all these texts. What are they talking about? They're all talking about one thing: you, nothing else but human being, and what we bring already to the party. To the Thanksgiving party. We bring the whole. So, what I was talking about when I say Thanksgiving, finding gratitude, when you discover the nature of yourself, you discover you're nothing but an ocean of gratitude, guys, an ocean of thanks. Because, wow, peace for no reason, happiness for no reason. Is it like when you were a kid, right? Was happiness for any reason? You were just happy. No reason. Same when you find out the ocean that you carry around with you, this ocean of whatever. Call it ocean of knowledge, ocean of happiness, ocean of bliss. Because you find that bliss doesn't come fragmented. We fragment bliss. We fragment happiness by calling it what? Ice cream. Right? And then when there's no more ice cream, I'm just using it as an example. When there's no more ice cream, then what? Is happiness gone? No. We are the idiots by attributing our happiness to something as fickle and fragile. The whole world is fragile. So attributing our happiness to anything, it's going to disintegrate and disappear. Okay? That's the bottom line. And that's what these teachings have been telling us all along. How do you depend on something that is not dependable? You can't depend on happiness if it's in an object, because the object keeps changing. Born in time, it ends in time. It goes through a period of preservation, but it's eventually going to end. Everything does that. And in the teaching, what it's called is mitya. Okay, mitya means born in time, preserves for some time, and then disintegrates, dies. Okay, so has anybody found anything that's not dying out there relative to you? It's all busy, atrophying, and it's all ephemeral. It doesn't last. It's all fake news. The only thing that isn't, you discover, is what? You. You are the only thing that's not fake. Try to deny yourself. You can't. Try to deny your existence. You can't. Right? You can't say you don't exist. Everything else, all the boffins, the scientists, the geniuses can deny everything and say none of it exists. And the Vedantins too. All these yogis, that doesn't exist. Neti doesn't exist. Whatever. But nobody tells you what does exist, do they? Because they've forgotten how. So what's happened over the last few years, number of years, 50 years, whoever knows, the teachings have come alive again. They were lost. They got all kind of confused in the tradition that keeps the teaching going, because it got lost in a language called Sanskrit. And now what's happened, India's translated, the teachers have translated this knowledge into English. Wow. Before, you wanted to know about this if you didn't speak Sanskrit, you couldn't find out about it. Okay, so since English has been the language spoken in India and educating kids in English, English has become now the means of teaching this old ancient wisdom, right, that comes in the stream of knowledge through for thousands of years. 10,000 years is nothing. It's been there all the time, because consciousness never ages, right? Consciousness, the river of consciousness, survives through the ocean of time, right? So when basically this ocean of happiness, ocean of joy, ocean of peace that I was talking about earlier, right? All the races and civilizations and different species can come and go, but that will never go. That will always remain, right? Consciousness. And so when you ask and wonder about consciousness, what is consciousness? Extraordinary? No. Unusual to be conscious? Is it something unique to be conscious? All of us are conscious already, without doing a thing, without sitting, meditating, doing all kind of things, whatever you have to do, trying to be conscious. What is everybody trying to do? I mean, it's ridiculous. What we got to figure out is what's making us unconscious. And what we find in 8 billion of us, there's one thing making 8 billion people absent: the thought of themselves. That's all. I. If you want to call it something, name it I. So does anybody know what this I is? Who I is? Traveling through all of us is the same I. Okay? So like the first name of the whole human race, when anybody gets asked, who are you? What do we say? I. Then comes the names, right? All the relative stuff, as I was talking earlier. Relative name. Relative to who? I. Relative to me. So if I'm calling myself I in every second sentence and every second idea that every second thought that I have, every thought that I have is only meaningful because of one thing, I, then surely it's about time now to get to know the meaning of this word, I. What does it mean? If everybody 8 billion, it means something different. But the meaning of the I, the word I, is one. And that's what we busy and we find out in these teachings called Atma Vidya. Google it if you like. Atma Vidya, self knowledge. Knowledge of Vidya means knowledge, and Atma just means if you have to name that ocean of peace, ocean of joy, ocean of truth existing in and through everything, in and through all identification, all objectification, in and through everything, which is common, in other words, like I was saying just now, ordinary, right? Universal. If you have to name that, you call it Atma, right? Consciousness. All consciousness in and through everything, whether it be objectified as an object or a thought of the object. There's nothing but consciousness shining in and through everything. Normal, it's like the sun shining on everything. Consciousness shines on all our thoughts, all our ideas, all the things that we are seeing. Without consciousness, what are you going to, nothing shines, okay? What are you going to do? So the idea is to find out, what is this I got to do with consciousness? And what we discover is the I thought, the thought of ourselves, where is that rooted? Can it be rooted outside in the world? No, it is rooted in consciousness. Every other thought that I just mentioned, ice cream just now, right? Every other thought, ice cream, where? Everybody knows where the best ice cream is for them. We all know where the best pizza place is for us, right? We know the address, right? So what is the address of ice cream? Wherever your favorite ice cream shop is, there you go, right? It could be in the fridge at the Whole Foods or whatever, you know. It's like wherever you find the ice cream, that's the address. But now what is the address of this I? We all know the favorite ice cream that we love, right? And we know where it is. Now, what is the most favorite thing in our lives besides ice cream? Can it be anything other than I? Self? Yeah? Who's your favorite person on the planet? This is what it's all about. And people have said to me, oh, I make this all so simple. It is simple, guys. When you get into the understanding of yourself and knowledge of yourself, you find that not only the glimpses of happiness that we've been experiencing throughout our lives, you know, turn into an ocean of happiness, ocean of bliss. You find that that which we have been looking for in ice cream, in relationships of all kinds, is that which is most familiar to us already, ourselves. Right? So nothing have to be done. You don't have to go and renounce anything or renounce ice cream or pizza or anything to be with yourself, to be conscious. Do you have to renounce anything? Nothing. It's simpler than the simplest, easier than the easiest. But what's happened over the years, we human beings, we complicate everything. So also we complicate the truth. And the truth is what we bring. Each of one of us brings this truth with us. Being born is the truth of a human being is already accomplished. All that has to happen is someone needs to introduce us. That's all that has to happen. It's that simple. What complicates it is us being able to accept what we're being introduced to. So this is the whole complication. So getting introduced to the I, we all have our lovely ideas of what it should be, but unfortunately, I is absolute. In each one of us, I is the absolute to which everything relates. So now the name we've been given, relative, the things we have, as I said earlier, everything we have is relative, cannot be the truth, cannot be absolute, cannot be who we are. But for us to enjoy the whole relative gamut of experience and perception and sensation and everything else, there has to be something permanent, something absolute, something that never changes. While everything else is changing, no problem, but the I never changes. Consciousness remains. It's like a highway. Ice cream never changes, right? Ice cream is ice cream. And the enjoyer of the ice cream changing with different flavors? No. Same enjoyer in and through everything. Guys, the thought is not variable. It doesn't change. So what I was saying just earlier is how we fragment happiness. It's like looking at the ocean, going into all sorts of waves, right? But ocean is one, water is one. But once you see the waves and you get introduced to the ocean and you see all the waves, okay, so imagine the whole of life is just this elemental ocean. And it is actually an elemental ocean. It's just made up of earth, fire, water, air, space. 5 elements make up the whole ocean of elements, right? And all these objects that we see, like this body running around, birds, trees, plants, flowers, insects, all the things, fruit, everything is all just made up of the same 5 elements: earth, fire, water, air, space. So getting lost, when we get introduced to, say, just take the ocean, getting introduced to ocean, when you've never seen ocean before, what happens? You then see ocean. Wow, okay, that's amazing. Okay. And then what happens? You see the waves. What are those? You ask, what are those? Now those are waves. Now you see the waves, you no longer see the ocean, right? And what gets taken for granted is water. Ocean is nothing but what? Water. Self-consciousness is an ocean of happiness, ocean of joy, ocean of peace, right? And so what the ice cream is doing is just reminding us or that there is such a thing, giving us a glimpse for a moment, right? That's what all these objects do, is just give us glimpses of something that is much bigger, something more subtle. So what do we want if essential oils become our church, for instance, right? Or ice cream becomes our church or our temple? What do we want from it? We want to basically, when we're eating the ice cream, just go into that. When that ice cream touches our tongue and we go boom, and we close our eyes and swoon, right? What are we doing? We're being with ourselves. In that moment, it's exactly the same as the moment in deep sleep, when you're absolutely happy, complete, blissful. The only difference is it's actually not different. In deep sleep, we are totally ignorant that we are being with ourselves, which is the happiness itself, bliss, completeness, right? And in waking state, when we are with ice cream, falling asleep in the ice cream, same thing. You're falling, it's total state of total ignorance. So it's a total state of ignorance, right? When you're in the ice cream, you're attributing the happiness to the ice cream, the complete feeling of completeness to the ice cream, but it's not in the ice cream. Where is it in the ice cream? If you break that ice cream apart, where do you find happiness inside? No. So who's putting happiness in the ice cream? We are. Who's putting happiness in anything and fragmenting happiness? We are. That's all that's going on all the time, guys. So just to stop doing that, what do? We have to find out the source of happiness, source of bliss, source of power, source of completeness, source of knowledge, source of everything, right? That's what self-knowledge is all about. And this is why it's been so profound and survived for generation upon generation upon generation. This teaching called Atma Vidya. It's named differently. You can call it Atma Vidya, you can call it Ishvara Vidya, you can call it Paravidya. Para means just beyond knowledge. Say, for instance, like we were running around South Africa with my teacher, and I introduced him to iced coffee. All right. And so he just said, oh, this is amazing. It really hit the spot, right? So we went and had an iced coffee at another place, and it was like, okay, didn't hit the spot. Okay. So now who decides what is happiness or what is not happiness? That's the whole point. Who pours all the happiness into the object? We do. Okay. Now, when we don't no longer find it there because that's no longer available or disappears, or I can't eat ice cream anymore because I suddenly find I've got too much sugar in my body and my blood's going through the roof and I've become diabetic or whatever, and I can no longer eat ice cream. Is it the ice cream's fault? That's the question. Can never be the ice cream. Does ice cream say to you, or the food that Grady, the recipe says, come, I'm going to make you happy? Nothing in the world does that. The world is absolutely innocent. We are the guilty ones. We decide that happiness is in the objects, and then when they disappear and die, we get miserable and blame the world and blame God and blame everything except ourselves, right? We the little angels. How can we blame us? So this is what these little talks are about self. And what we do is, because self is the chooser of happiness, right? And once you understand self as the source of happiness itself, then you no longer have to choose happiness, okay? You're just happy for no reason, right? No longer having any reason to be happy that is pure happiness. That is real happiness, okay? And what happens then? Permanent. Doesn't stop, because you suddenly realize, this is an ocean of happiness. There's always been. It's never been anything but an ocean. We've just been fragmenting it and calling it other things. Don't think of self as an idea, That's the point. You can't personalize this consciousness. The one moment it becomes personal, you're separating yourself from happiness. Because what is I? Okay? What does it represent? When we start to question this word I, what allows us to question? How does this question arise? We have come about through what? Through being part of creation, right? We're born out of this creation, okay? So now when we start questioning creation and questioning ourselves and what we are doing here, what is questioning what? Who is questioning who? Creation is questioning itself. Okay, so now what we do with this teaching and these texts, if you're interested, I take the students through the primary text on Atma Vidya called Tattva Bodh, and it answers all our questions. Okay, that's what it's like a teacher training manual in yoga or whatever. It's the manual on the human being. Okay. And what we do is we go through this text, and by the end of the text, you've got definitely no doubt about who you are. It doesn't take long. And then once you get introduced, then everything becomes easy. By answering the question of the questioner, what's going to happen? No more questions, because the whole point is, if you're answering the question of the questioner, then the whole universe explodes. That's what this is all about. Okay, so people go looking. We're looking for exotic experiences in ice cream. It can be ice cream. We're just using ice cream as an example, right? But what happens to us is, if ice cream's not good anymore, we go looking for the more exotic experience, the more elaborate kind of the experience is, the better it is for us. The more sophisticated the experience of joy, the more elaborate, the more sort of meaningful it must be, we think. Whereas what we don't realize is the most meaningful experience that we can have is going on right now, just being human. There's nothing more exotic in this creation. And that's what I was saying right at the beginning of the class. To accomplish being born human is the grand prize in the whole universe. Okay, there's nothing bigger. So if you want to collect the grand prize, all one has to do is be introduced to what? Oneself, because we bring the prize with us. That's it. We all carry this prize, and that's what we bring in. That's what we should be doing on Thanksgiving. Thank you for bringing us into the world. Thank you for you. And as I said earlier, once you discover the nature of yourself, it's just an ocean of gratitude, ocean of bliss, ocean of grace, ocean of joy, and that never stops. Okay, we don't want anything that stops. That's not what we're here for. Okay, becoming interested in understanding this self and understanding ourselves and the nature of the creation and what we are doing here, etc., etc. What does that do? We become a seeker, and what eventually happens is the seeker discovers themselves to be the sought. Okay, that's how it goes. So going into the inquiry of who I am, what I am, and what I'm doing here, the inquiry ends in the inquirer. So where does all knowledge resolve? This is all pure logic, guys. Nothing fancy tricks, whatever. It's just pure logic. And if it's not logical, throw it out. Where does all inquiry end? Please, whether it's on a relative looking for ice cream or looking for oneself, it all ends in the seeker. Okay? And so I reckon we've had quite an interesting class today, talk. Okay? And so all we are doing, all a teacher of self-knowledge is doing is just sharing and pointing out what we already bring with us. Okay? No rocket science. You don't have to give up anything. You don't have to give up eating ice cream. You don't have to give up anything other than one's ignorance of oneself. That's it. Because that's the only thing that's conflicting and the only thing getting conflicted and conflicting all of us is one thought called I. Now, once you get rid of ignorance of I, or ignorance of this word I, ignorance of self, there can be no more conflict. Let's just close our eyes, if you wouldn't mind, and we'll just finish off. As I say, we have a lot of fun because there's nothing more fun than discovering the nature of yourself. Closing the eyes. I'm just going to do a mantra that is in line with the tradition of this teaching. We can all chant Om, if we like, 3 times. Take a nice breath in and chanting Om. Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmatacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. That Paramparam word means lineage. It's that which is carried through a tradition of teaching. So you thank the lineage of teachers that have come before us. I'm not sharing anything fancy. I've just learned this from my teachers. Okay, it just comes down the line. So thanks for joining me.